managing moderators have some capabilities. Wow. Managing moderators. Okay. I'll have to learn more about that here in a few minutes. All right. Uneducated Economist, thank you so much for joining in on today's live stream. Whoa, hold on one second here. Got to back you up just a little bit. All right, today we're talking about the issues we are now facing within the economy. We're essentially dying on the vine, and economists have no clue about what it is that's taking place out there. Now, I have tried to share what it is that I have done as far as researching from a working class point of view on what it is that's taking place within this economy so that we can better understand how it is that we can position ourselves. And when I said stuff like we are not going to find manufacturers coming back to the United States, and it's not because of a political pressure or corporate greed or anything else, it has to come down to the Cantillon effect and how it is that new money entering the system has risen the standard of living, which makes us very uncompetitive when it comes to manufacturing against people out there who are sleeping on the ground. So I have tried to share this information many, many times, and yet I find people out there pushing back against that, saying, oh man, you have no clue. It's all this political environment that is creating the situation. And yet what is the outcome? What it is that I have been trying to share with you. The manufacturers are not coming back to the United States. I have to say it again, what tariffs, because we have no idea on what it is that's taken place. And then we have this idea that the Supreme Court may even vote down these tariffs and that they may not even be implemented at all, and all that has to be unwound. So when I come across stuff like this, I'm going to share this with you. I'm not even sure who this is. MSNBC, yeah, big surprise there. But when I hear these talking heads delivering information like they are, it just goes to show that those of us who have been aware of the underlying economic forces that have now created the situation we now face, stuff like this is not a surprise. Let me just play this. It's very short. It's only 53 seconds. Here we go.
I cannot get into President Trump's head, but my Wall Street sources have been saying to me for months,
the Wall Street sources. I love that. You know, what Wall Street sources do you really need to understand the underlying economic forces? Right? You don't need any. All you need to do is just go back and study history.
Or could be the saving grace for Donald Trump. We have not yet felt the full impact of these tariffs, because a lot of companies have temporarily eaten the cost, or they front loaded their inventory. Christmas season isn't even here yet, so we haven't felt the full impact.
But right, haven't felt the full impact. What tariffs? How many times have I said it? Just like they're saying, we haven't felt the full impacts of it, and I've been trying to say the same thing. What tariffs? People are like, man, what are these tariffs doing to the economy? I'm like, what tariffs are we talking about here? Right? Nobody knows exactly what it is. People are conducting themselves in ways as if these tariffs have already been implemented, and then yet we find behavior that has taken place that is front-running or trying to circumvent or try to work around or whatever. What tariffs are we talking about? And then
actual graceful exit ramp. And one of my sources said to me, he believes that this is what Scott Besson is on his knees every morning, actually hoping and praying for, that the Supreme Court will vote down these tariffs. Trump will get to say, ugh, I tried to do this for you, the American people. I tried to bring manufacturing back, even though these tariffs are not bringing large-scale manufacturing back. But
they never were going to bring manufacturing back. We understood this from a working class point of view. If you know the Cantillon effect, that our jobs, even if they were to be good paying jobs, still doesn't provide enough to buy into this American dream lifestyle. Like, those good manufacturing jobs are not coming back. Even the good jobs we have here suck. Right? Like, to think that we're going to have good manufacturing jobs returning to the United States is completely delusional.
Courts stopped me.
No. So anyway, basically saying that the Supreme Court stopped them from being able to deliver all these good, wonderful manufacturing jobs back to the United States, which we knew were not going to be happening. Okay? This is the case that we now must face. Once we understand it, then we can understand how it is that we deal with the situation, knowing that there is nothing that can happen. Like, people who are waiting around, it's just like, man, if we could just bide our time till the good manufacturing jobs come back, and then I won't have to stress anymore. How many people are believing in that? It's crazy to think, right? And then on top of it, what is it that they can actually do? Because, when I think about the political environment, we got to fire Jerome Powell and fire him immediately, because by firing Jerome Powell, we can adjust these interest rates and get them back down to where they need to be in order to stimulate the economy and have everybody singing Kumbaya. And I think to myself, Jerome Powell is one person who votes on the FOMC. There are 19 members to the FOMC, to the Federal Open Market Committee. 12 of them vote, right? There is many voting members to the FOMC who alternate. Listen to this. Oops, if I can get it to play.
Today we're going to do a little backfilling on the Federal Reserve. Exactly now 27 days until the next meeting, and things have gotten a little dicey, right?
Right? Don't know. Uh-oh, what's going on? Man, the Fed doesn't know what they're going to do. Things are dicey. We got to figure out how they're going to vote, right? It's going to be crazy.
Right now, the CME Fed Watch tool has the probabilities of a 25 basis rate cut at 53.4%. That's down from the mid-70s.
Uh-oh. 50-50 chance of a cut. 53% chance of a cut. You see how this is open-ended? I love this delivery of this guy, right? Because this is exactly how the Federal Reserve wants to conduct their monetary policy, is by delivering information exactly like this. By keeping it open-ended. We have no idea. Very dicey. Uh-oh. Very concerning. 27 days till their meeting. We don't have any idea on what's going to about ready to take place. Very scary situation. Hold on one second here, guys. Sorry, let me turn off the Wi-Fi. Sometimes it tries to connect to the Wi-Fi and it gets all sketchy. But you can see it right here. He's trying to figure out what it is that we need to do. Like,
70s, that's down from
right?
higher than that.
Oops. And we got this 50-50 chance of an interest rate cut. So now when I think about some of the things that the Federal Reserve has delivered as far as the conducting of their monetary policy, the strategy of it, keeping an open-ended policy, making sure that they are data dependent. And then even better, if you have no data to go off of, that's even better, right? Because now people have no idea on what to look at. So here you have the Federal Reserve pushing the people out there with this idea that there is going to be some sort of data dependence on whether or not they are going to adjust interest rates. And that interest rate adjustment takes 6 months to a year before it impacts the economy, and sometimes even longer. But yet, the idea of what has taken place today is going to have an immediate impact on their interest rate adjustments. You see the difference inside of this? Like, their communications has so much more power over the actual interest rate adjustment itself that takes 6 months to a year to actually have an effect. But this is an immediate response. Check it out.
Now, we still have 27 days. That's 4 full weeks to go here for a Fed meeting. But let's go over who exactly are the Fed members that will be voting in 27 days. Obviously, Jerome Powell, chairman of the board of directors. John Williams, vice chair and president of the New York Fed. Michael Barr is on the board of governors. That's 3. Michelle Bowman, very dovish. That's 4. Lisa Cook, that's 5.
Remember Lisa Cook? We wanted to fire Lisa Cook, yet she's still here, right? You remember how many people are like, oh man, we're really changing the Federal Reserve. Donald Trump is firing people right now. Lisa Cook doesn't have a position there. She's voting here in a few days, right? All that information. How many people are still like stuck on that? Like, let's fire Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook. When was the last time you ever saw an article on that? Right?
Philip Jefferson and Christopher Waller. Those are the permanent voters on the FOMC board. Now, these are the rotating regional Fed presidents that rotate in 1 year, out 1 year. Okay? And they are Susan Collins from the Boston Fed, Austin Goolsbee, now voting again this year from the Chicago Fed, Jeffrey Schmidt from the Kansas City Fed, and Alberto Mussolem from the St. Louis Fed. Remember, there's 19 members of the Fed, but only 12.
19 members. These are the people who come up with monetary policy. 19 members. Everybody says, oh man, Jerome Powell, he's in charge of all this stuff. Like, the focus on Jerome Powell was literally the distraction away from what it is that's taken place within monetary policy. Every single person who ever says, man, Jerome Powell needs to be fired, literally has no clue about how monetary policy is conducted. The firing Jerome Powell would made zero difference. You have 19 members who are conducting monetary policy. He is one of them, and he's not even really one of them of any kind of significant power outside of delivery of the message itself, which is speaking on behalf of the FOMC. That's the understanding that most people should take and have no understanding of. Right? They just don't. I don't get it. Like they don't, because it's very difficult to wrap your heads around, and instead it's easier to just let mainstream media deliver information, and they deliver false information constantly.
19 participate in the meeting. They'll give their SEP in the quarterly meetings, but they don't vote during the 2025 period. They'll rotate back in 2026. That could be interesting. But if you go through them, Alberto Muslim is speaking today. We'll probably get some comments from him. Susan Collins has been making comments. Austin Goolsbee talked about hesitating. Jeffrey Schmidt was one of the dissenters that said no rate cut. Then we go into the permanent members. When you look at Michelle Bowman.
So you see how all these different members have different viewpoints on what it is that needs to be taking place with monetary policy. Many of them are coming out at the same time, disagreeing with each other, which makes for stimulating debate and ultimately better policy. Better policy because they can then use the forward guidance, the signaling, the jawboning, or what I like to refer to as credible threats, in order to get people within the markets to behave in a certain fashion. You see the evidence of it here taking place within the so-called economist. They have no clue. They do not address it in the fashion that I have. Like when I share what it is that they are doing by delivering this particular message to the people out there, then they are literally working on behalf of the Federal Reserve to deliver particular information to you. This is how it's working. If you stand back and you watch the information get delivered to the people and then the reactions to that information, you can see the monetary policy being conducted. Right? The interest rate adjustment is the communication tool, but it's not the tool within itself. That tool failed. It lost the ability to actually stimulate the economy back during the great financial crisis. They no longer use it for the effective primary tool. However, since most people don't realize that they lost control over the economy with interest rate adjustments back during the great financial crisis, they still believe that is the case. That they can still use these interest rate adjustments to stimulate the economy. They cannot. Right? They can talk about it. They can do things with it. They can get the people to behave in a certain fashion that says, yeah, it's adjusting, that's easing monetary policy. They're doing all these things to try and stimulate the economy with these interest rate adjustments or restrict the economy, but it's not working. The belief of it does. Most people don't recognize that there is a neutral interest rate environment that they must incorporate into their strategy. Most people have no idea what that means. The neutral interest rate is a rate that is neither accommodating nor restricting the economy. And when that neutral interest rate rises, it makes the economy far less restricted than anybody had given it consideration for. This is why the Federal Reserve has dissenting votes, is because that neutral interest rate is rising on the credible threat of tariffs. Ever increasing amounts of tariffs, ever increasing amounts of inflation. All the misunderstanding, concerns, and failure to then be able to conduct yourself in a way that feels confident and I don't know, reasonable. I don't even know how to even term it anymore. But as most people look at it with fear and anxiety and doubt, they then have to question what it is that's taking place in the future. This anxiety, fear, and doubt raises the inflation expectation with the credible threat of tariffs and, incorporated into it. This raises the neutral interest rate. The economy becomes far less restricted. Those at the top are sit there, people are wondering why they're doing so well and have such a resilient consumer out there. Well, at the same time, consumer sentiment seems to be in the toilet. Well, you think about it, it was like 80% of the people are suffering. 20% of the people are kicking it. They're doing quite well. It's obvious what's happening here when you have the inequality of magnitudes like we do. There is literally no option for the rich and there is no abilities for the poor. Like, what are the rich going to do? Shoot themselves in the foot and say, hey man, we're not going to go for more next year than we made this year? Of course not. They are not going to do that. Nobody in their right mind wants to make the same amount. They all want to make more. I don't care if you're making an hourly wage or if you're making tons of investment money. You want to make more this year than you made last year. You don't want to make less this year than you made last year. That's the same for everybody. And so there is no way in the world that the rich elitists out there are going to do the right thing for you and try and hand you over a bunch of their wealth. It isn't going to happen that way, and you can't force it out of them. Dying on the vine. That's what's happening. Right? It's easy to see it. It's easy to recognize it. Once you see the Federal Reserves and their monetary policy is being conducted by many and not by an individual, Donald Trump doesn't control it. Right? Jerome Powell doesn't control it. Michelle Bowman doesn't control it. None of these people control it. This is a group effort of trying to maintain a financial system that has ever increasing amounts of abilities to take out debt, and that will fail at some point. How they are able to continue to operate is anybody's guess. The use of negative interest rates, cryptocurrencies, cashless societies, the options are wide open for a lot of people to then have a conspiratorial mindset of what it is that could possibly come into the future, but to know that they are going to try and maintain an operating financial system will also mean ever increasing amounts of new money coming into the system, which would mean ever increasing amounts of inequality. And this is the suffering that most people are going to end up facing as they continue to die on the vine. Most economists are clueless. They just don't get this. They don't get it. Right? And so as I try to share it with you, you can then recognize how it is that this is going down. You can recognize why it's taken place. You can recognize that the efforts of the administration, no matter how valiant they are, they are not going to bring in the promises of better jobs and manufacturing and all this other stuff. It's not an option for them. They can say it all day long. You can imagine the possibilities. You can deliver a strategy, but then at the end of the day, the results will not be there because there are underlying economic forces that are definitely playing out. And when you recognize those underlying economic forces, everything that you see as far as tariffs and subsidies and stimulus and all the other efforts that they're putting out there is literally a symptom of the deterioration that is happening. Otherwise, they wouldn't be needing to do it. Right? Okay, let's read through some of these comments here. This is what unregulated capitalism looks like. Well, that would be true, Jay, if you actually had capitalism. But see, capitalism means that you will actually have failure occurring within the economy. The Obama administration definitely proved that we have crony capitalism taking place, in which that we will have private gains and public losses. Now, it's not just the Obama administration, but it's proof that this is something that has been falling apart for quite some time, and it was only leading up to that show the evidence of how dramatic of a experience within the failure of capitalism that has actually happened long ago. And you can't call this capitalism unless you are allowing the failure. So what we have is something far beyond what can be considered any kind of capitalistic system. Capitalism doesn't exist here, period, end of story. It doesn't exist. If it did, we would have the failure. Too big to fail does not exist in a capitalistic system. Must be understood. To blame capitalism is very naive, right? Because too big to fail cannot exist in a capitalistic system. You know, to say the failure, evils, or unwinding of a capitalistic system, no. Capitalism would have solved a lot of these problems if we had allowed it to work and allowed the failure to take place, but we don't allow that because we are crony capitalistic society in which that we blame capitalism for the problems of the suffering of the poor while the rich continue to get rich. And then they say, hey, man, this is capitalism that does it, but isn't it an awesome thing that I was in the right position? You know? No, that's not the way this is. You know, this isn't a capitalistic system. All right. Socialized losses and privatized gains seems fair. Yeah. Capitalism. That's what it really is, Brody. Capitalism. All right. We need to outlaw all building codes. Ooh. Well, then people would be building pretty crappy buildings and they would fall down, and you know we have issues with that. I don't know about eliminating all building codes, but you know I understand the regulations that then limit the amount of building that can take place because of all the criterias that they have to meet in order to actually assemble a home or a building of any kind. I mean, I can understand the frustrations within it, but to eliminate all building codes, there's a lot of shoddy builders out there who need to meet the code. They just don't know how. All right. Love the vid. Simon's still finding it difficult to internalize all of the info without visual aid. Would recommend using Excitable as it is free online whiteboard. Love using it with friends. Yeah, I don't know. But I do everything live. Like, I don't do anything pre-recorded. Like, I could make up all kinds of recorded videos, but the authenticity and realism that comes from a live stream is not something that a lot of people are doing out there. Like, I can think of the perfect sentence and then deliver a perfect sentence edited alongside another perfect sentence alongside another perfect one, and then have this really wonderful video that is all edited so that there is no mistakes in it and every single thing is absolutely perfect, because that is, the professional editing format in which that they are trying to deliver their message with. Now, me personally, I'd rather come out here and just be real with you guys and just give it straight from the cup, right? Straight off the hip or whatever, shoot from the hip, whatever I'm trying to say. I'm in SoCal. My house will fall down. All right, what do you think of the negative sentiment about AI bubble and Bitcoin? I don't know. I guess the negative sentiment is good for those who like to buy. For me, I hope to have, I don't like seeing the things that I want to buy become very popular. I want to see the things that I want to sell become very popular, and I don't want to sell anything right now. I want to accumulate. It's when I old that's when I want to sell, right? And so to me, if they can manipulate silver down, I'm down. I mean, I don't want to say, hey, man, I'm cool with that, but I'm kind of cool with that. Load up on more cheap silver. Why not? So when I think about the negative sentiment, bring it on, man. Say more crap about Bitcoin and silver to drive the price down as much as possible. That would be great, because those are two things that I want to keep loading up on. And the cheaper they are, the better for me, And again, it's when I'm 80 years old that I want these things to go through the roof. And then when they do, then I would be happy to sell them off at that point. So bring on the negative sentiment. All right? I know better. I know what Bitcoin, you say all the bad stuff you want about Bitcoin and silver. Just tear it up, man. Bring it on. Keep saying it. I want to hear it. In fact, I want to hear more delivery of that information out there across the board for more people to then internalize, so they won't be buying it, and I will. Say as much bad stuff as you want about it. Have negative sentiment about it. I'm cool with it. I have my own belief about it. I don't care. Dude. Counterintuitive investing only works when you're really focusing on your goals, not everyone else's. Contrarian. Deja vu, there was a lot of easy credit in that period. Ooh, what did deja vu say? Hey, Deja, great to see you here. The biggest housing boom took place in 1997 through 2006. That's actually surprising. Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know, like, how else everybody else is seeing it, but like once I started recognizing, how much time do we have here? 25 minutes into this. So once I started recognizing how the underlying economic forces started separating the rich from the poor, and how it is that a good working class everyday job was enough. Like, people say, well, we had to do it back in our day and now the kids have to do it today, and it's not the same thing. Like, to try and make it today with the same type of work that was providing enough for a household back in the day, that's not the same experience. It's not the same thing taking place. And so when I step back and I start to understand why it is that it's occurring in this fashion, I don't look to blame. I don't look to blame politics or greedy corporations or anything else. There's a reason why it's happening. And when you go back and you find evidence of it in Cantillon's essay from economic theory from hundreds of years ago, you start to think, okay, well, maybe it's underlying economic forces that are playing out. What are these underlying economic forces that I can then recognize so that I understand why it is that my day job isn't enough, no matter how hard I struggle or save or attempt to cut back and be in a position in which that I can acquire the things that I need. It just seems to be falling further and further and further behind. And people keep questioning it. Man, what political environment do I need to vote for in order to change this? And you have to understand you can't do that. You can't do that. Because there's no political environment that is going to change this experience. As much as people want to deliver you a promise that there can be, there is no evidence from history that has proven that. People will try to share a short decade of time in which they say, oh no, look at this is where it occurred, so that you can live a very brief moment in which that it was an acceptable moment. Right? It doesn't last. There is ever increasing amounts of new money. There is ever increasing amounts of separation between the rich and the poor, and there is ever increasing amounts of issues that you will find in which that the delivery of an economy that says, man, the average working class can keep up, will not be there. This is the outcome. It's unfortunate. I mean, I wish it was a way that I could give people hope that says, man, don't do anything, just wait right here, and it'll be okay. It's not going to happen, right? If you sit there and wait, you're going to fail, right? That's all there is to it. It's recognizing it, it's recognizing the issues. Because vote for the right person, right? Vote for the person you think is going to do the best job for you, but, really, you're on your own, All right, Buffalo Blanco, thank you so much for the $4.99. Simon, have you considered having a clipper or doing it yourself? Most topics you covered live, but the topic ends in 10 minutes, then you go to comments. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's more work that I should be doing for this channel. There should be more work that I could be doing to deliver information out there so that it's easier to digest and easier to absorb, and cut it into 4-minute videos and do TikTok videos and do all this other stuff out there. And then I think to myself, there's a few people out there who really want to learn this stuff, who really understand it, who are committed to, figuring this stuff out for themselves, and those people are here. Right? We have 172 people watching right now. Most of these people who are watching right now truly, really want to be here. The comments, the conversations, the topics that we cover here are for the absolute highest, I don't even know, not the highest authority. There's not authority in this. It's for the highest, it's for the deep end. That's what I guess it should be. It's for the people who want to swim in the deep end. Right? Most people want to swim in the shallows. They want to swim in the shallows and dip their toe into it. We're over here, we dive deep. Right? We get into topics in which that most people who are talking economics have no they don't even fathom. They don't even conceptualize the idea behind it. And here we are talking it up from a 97 Suburban on a lunch break, working at a lumber yard, breaking down some of the deepest topics that anybody is going to break down here on the internet in a way that the average everyday person can do it. And if I was to try and spread this out so that tons and tons and tons of people would join in, then we would cloud it. We would actually make it less effective for those who are really trying to figure this out. This is for the best, right? This is for the best and the people who are really wanting it. Everybody else is just, they want easy. They want, like, delivered. They want, like, I don't even know. Like, for the most part, people don't want it to be difficult or work or anything like that. Like, if it's anything remotely close to that, they pass. Never mind. All right. Give me something that I can process in just a few minutes, and if you do anything more than that, it's not worth it. All right. And that's why, a lot of times I'm thinking, these live streams, it does a couple of things. One, these are real, right? I mean, this is me just straight up. The comments, right? This is the reality of everything that we're having within a conversation. It's not made up. It's not edited. None of that stuff. This is live. And it does a couple of things, right? It keeps it real, but it also keeps me in a position in which that delivery of information is coming directly from not a manipulated stance in which, man, I hope I can get a bunch of views from scaring and fearing and all that other stuff. That's not, I could edit a video together to make something of that nature happen. And then that would be the type of content that would be there. That would be the type of audience that we would have. Think about the audience that we have when we're delivering information like this. This is only for those who are truly wanting to be here. And if I did it any other way, we may not have the same group. Pooping while standing. I love the name. You've been here for a long time, bro. All right, thank you for the $2. Ever looked at skyrocketing debt once women voted? Well, I think that's a little disingenuous. I think that happened to occur at the same time. And it was opening up access to different people who had the ability to take out debt. Now, you have to think, it was debt issuance that was the problem. How do we get more and more and more debt issuance out there? Because it's not a matter of necessarily the right amount of debt or the right people taking out debt. It's just the fact that debt is being issued, right? Think about it for this. Here's another good example of it, student loan debt, right? Think about when all of a sudden, all kids all of a sudden had to take on a bunch of student loan debt, right? They didn't have to, they chose to. Very much like that was a very opening up of opportunity to take out a lot of debt. Or have a lot of debt issuance. That's what I should say. Like, when I say take out a lot of debt, a lot of people think of the individual. I'm thinking about like the debt issuance itself, to create the debt instrument. Because once you have created a debt instrument, now you have an asset. That's right. Somebody else's debt is another person's asset. And so now you have a ton of assets that are being essentially developed by the student loan market. Right? And same thing with, women, like if they didn't have access to the credit, then now all of a sudden here's a group that has access to credit. Right? These kids, right? The credit cards, how about student loan debt? All of a sudden they got access to credit. Right? Here's this asset that's being developed. The reason why they needed the asset is because, again, like the government needed something to buy. Right? The government needs something to buy. The feds need something to buy. Everybody needs something to buy in order to deploy money out there into the system. What is it you buy? You have to buy an asset. Liabilities are the money. Assets are the loans. So when you have a financial asset like a student loan debt, right? This becomes a student loan asset-backed security, slabs. This slab sits on the government's balance sheet as an asset, if you can believe that. Now you have an asset that they can't even get rid of, right? So now it permanently sits on the Fed's or the government's balance sheet as this asset. Whether it pays or not, it's still there. And that's kind of the point of it, is like, how do you develop this asset out of nowhere? Well, deliver a bunch of student loans. Boom, asset, right? You can't, back in the day, when women were not a resource of potential debt issuance until they were, right? They go to work, they can pay debts. More women working, the more potential to get a debt issuance out there. All right. Man, you made it too emotional. Cannot even refute that. Thanks, Simon. What do we talk about? I forgot, Blanco. Oh, yeah. Um, well, it's real. Like, when I think about like what it is that we're doing on this channel, a lot of times I think to myself, man, I should be doing so much more. And there was a time in which that I was really pushing to try and do things that would be more monetizations and, trying to bring that, that extra money in, the money beyond the money I'm already making. And I thought to myself, man, what is it that I really wanted from this channel when I started it? Because that's what got the channel to grow. Was that initial energy that I was putting into it. And what was it? Did I really want to make money at it? It was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I wanted to make money. I want to make money at everything I do. But it wasn't like my goal to make money. My goal was to make $100. That was literally my goal because that was the threshold to make money on YouTube. When I look deep down inside and I think about what it was that I was doing when I started this channel is I really wanted to learn. I really wanted to have a conversation and understand what it is that's happening within the economy and share that view with other people and have a conversation about it so that I could learn. That was my goal, and I found that that is exactly what ended up happening. Is I learned a lot about the economy, and I share my ideas with people who are absolutely amazed by some of the things that I have come up with, considering how deep into the economy they look and still weren't able to recognize some of the things that I have shared with them when it comes to monetary policy or the lumber industry or some of the things like that. So I think to myself, yes, man, this is the reward that I'm getting from my initial effort, which was to try and understand what it is that's happening within the economy. By sharing this information and trying to be helpful and useful, I get a reward for that. I get the ad revenue. Not always is it awesome. Sometimes it's pretty good. Other times when lumber was taken off and it was running up to all-time highs and everybody wanted to know what the hell was going on, and I'm getting 4, 5, 50,000 views. I mean, 4 or 5,000 views an hour, really. 50,000 views on a video. It was like, a lot of money comes in from ad revenue on something like that. Those aren't always the case, right? And so when people look at like a YouTube channel that has 160,000 subscribers or close to it, and they think about other YouTubers out there and how much money they make, and I'm thinking like a lot of them do things to make the money with their channel. That's stuff that I don't do, right? I don't make content that I think is going to be the most popular content out there. I think of content that I think is going to be the most useful one, that we can have a conversation and try and learn the next step on what it is that we need to do. That's the content I think of. But if I was going for money, it wouldn't be that. It would be something completely different. And don't get me wrong, I like making the money. I want to make more money at it. But I really want to make sure that I'm staying true to this channel and what it is that I was trying to do, and then the initial beginnings of it. And that was just make sure that I'm still learning something, right? All right. You turn numb when you're poor long enough. You really do. Captain Apana, that's not an insult. That's actually the truth. All right, you do. You turn numb when what time is it? All right, I got a few more minutes here, guys, and then I got to go. Wayne, yo, I've been smiling for almost 50 years. I don't cry. Outside of disabilities, people get richer or more poor with each decision they make. Good or bad, decisions compound. Pooping while standing. I'm looking at retiring overseas. The women here are cooked in their brains. Not all, but most. I need a return on investment for a transactional interaction with women today. Dying at the vine sounds like people with student loan debt. Well, you know, again, we have to think about what it is that's taking place inside of this economy right now. The debt issuance is a major issue. Everybody is now facing the problem with it. It's debt saturation that is happening. We all look at it. We're like, man, we feel overwhelmed. We're, you know, it's too much for us to handle. The jobs don't keep up. The things are getting more expensive. And we ask for relief on side of this, right? And so, like, what is it that's going on inside of our world that's making this happen? And when we think about this from a different point of view, right? If you back it up just a little bit and say it, man, okay, the ever-increasing amounts of new money that has poured into the system is now creating this environment. There is nothing that can change that, right? So now understand that part of it. It's just like, okay, so I'm going to show up every day for my job and it's barely going to cut it. Yeah, in fact, it may not even cut it at all. So at that point, most people say, okay, I quit, which is the last thing you should do. Right? They say, I'm giving up. Screw that. I'm not doing it. I'm not participating. We need, you know, major change. We need, you know, relief. We need government intervention. We need, right? They say all this stuff. When ultimately what it comes down to is recognizing why it's happening, right? Why it's happening is because there is a certain group out there who has put their time, effort, and energy into assets. And now a lot of times you will find a group of people out there who didn't do that, who say, oh, they're the problem, right? Well, because they didn't do it and they partied it up and they got drunk and smoked weed and went to concerts and did everything else with their money other than deploying that into a return on their investments, they now want to blame the people who did that. And because there was a group of people who had done it, or groups of people and different levels of people who had done this, who have done it in such a time, over such amount of time, that those assets that has ever increasing amounts of new money pouring into it have swelled to such a dramatic level. Right? So now people who are down at the bottom saying, man, I didn't do that, and look how far away you are. That's a major issue, right? What are you going to do about that? Are you going to continue to say, man, it's happening? Or are you going to say, well, maybe I need to figure out how to team up with somebody to get rental properties. Maybe I need to figure out what the hell a dividend paying stock means. Maybe I need to figure out what bonds and a business or something out there that I can get some sort of return on, because if I don't do that, this problem is going to get worse, because there's no way that they're going to end this financial system. They're not going to end it. They're going to try and figure out how to increase the debt issuance, ever increasing amounts of it. More war, more debt, more separation between the rich and the poor. Zero doubt of that. And so once you say, okay, yes, that's going to happen. Now, what do we do? Right? Cut back on your expenses, increase your extra money, whatever that means, right? The money beyond the money you're already making, and then you deploy that money into some sort of return. If you do not do that, you can expect to be left behind. That's like, I mean, it's sad, but true. And it really doesn't even take that much. Like, you know, really, you look out there and you think about how many people are attempting to do anything, and it's very few. Most people are just complaining about the world. So when you think, okay, man, there's so many options, so many opportunities, and so many different things that I can do, and the people who aren't doing it, that's your competition, man. There's like literally nobody doing it. You know, I mean, how many people do you know who are out there trying every single minute of every single day to try and put themselves in a position in which that they are able to acquire more, be in the flow, cut back on their expenses, make the next contact, make the next, you know, right move? How many people are out there in that mindset continuously? Very few. Think about the people who do that. They're kicking ass, right? In this exact economy, the one that most people are complaining about. What else is there? All right, I gotta go, guys. This was a lot of fun, and I'm gonna read Pooping While Standing. Women have shown they can't manage or handle debt. Pooping while standing, I think that's like, I think it's a bit stereotypical, but if you wanted to look at it from an understanding of, like, you know, from a different position in which that men and women behave and act and feel differently about everything that is happening out there. right? Like, a man is willing to cut back on everything that he has in order to limit it to the very minimal, in order to acquire a massive amounts of abundance to have in safety and security and all this other stuff for no real reason other than to try and provide an abundance and safety and security for women, who women really want a nest of like security and protection and all this other stuff. And so when you really think about it from this primitive standpoint, that these are really instinctual behaviors that are happening, they act very differently. Right? They act differently, both with money and debt and work and security and housing and all that other stuff. So to blame or to, take a particular idea that women nowadays, no, it doesn't have anything to do with that. Right? A man stands on his own. Women follow that leadership. If you can't handle the leadership of a woman, then most likely the women are going to stomp all over you, right? But if you can handle the leadership of it and you find that woman who is in agreement with that leadership, the powerful synergy that can come from that is absolutely overwhelming, right? It's like a partnership of all partnerships that can occur from something like that. But it really comes down to understanding that masculine and feminine dynamic, right? That symbioticness that comes from these two energy forces. And it's like I see too much blame out there instead of understanding. It's not a matter of nowadays, this is the way it's always been. It's just a matter of understanding how it is that you need to conduct yourself in order to achieve the things that it is that you want in your life. And part of that is just being in the correct energy. It's not a matter of being some like arrogant, stuck up, toxic, masculine, whatever they want to call it that. But there's another thing to be assertive, direct, how do you put it? Focused, right? Determined. These are different, like, it's not the same thing. And when you stand up in these positions and you say, nothing's going to deter me from these things, and I'm going to go on that direction. And if anybody wants to join in, man, they're more than welcome to. And if you try to knock me off this path or this balance that I am going down, I'm going to have to say goodbye. Right? I'm going to have to say, as much as I enjoy and like your company and, appreciate everything that we've done together, I'm heading down this road. And if you don't like it, I'm going to have to say, I'm sorry. Goodbye. Most guys can't do that. They don't know how to say that to a woman. And if you're not willing to let her go, then you're not willing to go down your path. All right? Being stuck on your path, be determined on what it is that you got going on, and knowing that outcome is your destination, finding a woman who's on board with that, you're going to find the most powerful combination that you have ever been in, right? They're out there. They agree with you. They want it. They want that from you. Like, they're rooting for you to do that. Don't think that they're not, All right. I gotta go, guys. I would love to keep talking about this, but this isn't really even my wheelhouse. Okay, Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.